So hello guys, what's up and welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's me, your girl Barrister Neze, and this is Nezeville. Today's topic weighs very heavily on my heart, and the reality of what has just unfolded is shattering. Before we go on with this video, I would like us to listen to this briefly and listen real good.
And there was a day he disvirgin me. That very day it happened in the study. It happened around 2 p.m. at night, when my auntie was already sleeping and children were already sleeping. He came in, he woke me up and said he wants me to help him with coffee. I brought him the coffee, and then he pushed me to the branch chair in the study and then forced me and harassed me. I was trying to tell him that I don't want this, because already he already asked if I was a virgin, and I said yes, I want to disvirgin when I'm in my husband's house, and he told me that virginity is nothing, that if in his hospital, that if girls are pregnant or they are disvirgin, he knows the way he's going to lie to their parents that virginity is nothing. Even a girl of 13 years old is not a virgin. That what is virginity? He forced me, he has said to me, even after I tried to resist. After that, he then cleaned the blood, and I was really sad that day. So I don't really know what he did with the blood, and he gave me these 2 tiny tablets for me to drink. And then there was something he had on his hand, which I can't even remember what he said. And he said, "Mark this day. The day you say anything about this, you will die." So whenever he keeps on doing this for 1 year and 9 months now, and each time he do, you say, the day you will say anything, you will die. Every day he keeps on threatening me that, and I've not been able to tell my auntie about this.
You see, children at the very core of every society. And if you see a society, a country that is progressing, check the way they treat children. Check the way they treat vulnerable people. Children are the most vulnerable amongst us, yet they are the lifeline of the future of any country. The foundation upon which any generation and every generation should build. Any society that cannot or refuses to or neglects to protect their children is not just failing those children, it is actively and certainly undermining its own future and its own progress. It is planting seeds of dysfunction, instability, and chaos that is sure to bloom for generations to come. A few months ago, we covered the harrowing story of Dr. FEMI OLALEYE. The 56-year-old doctor had earned his medical degree from the Obafemi Awolowo University in Nigeria. He then traveled to the UK, obtained an MBA, and then began medical practice at the UK's National Health Service, where he worked for about 10 years. Dr. Femi was married in England for about 14 years, and he had 2 children. So when he suddenly relocated back to Nigeria and opened his foundation, the Optimal Cancer Care Foundation, and moved his practice back home, some people may have thought that he did that for humanity. He did that for the passion he has to serve his people, to help his people.
The biggest challenge we've had is that of ignorance. How people are ignorant about so many things. So that ignorance and the poverty of mindset, the crop of leaders we get are from the same pool.
But in the coming years, it will become clear why Dr. Femi left the UK. So Dr. Femi was back to Nigeria, an ideal and perfect playing ground for people like him. He got married to a beautiful, resourceful, and God-fearing lady, Remy, a Harvard graduate, and they had 2 kids together, a boy and a girl. He opened his private clinic, focusing on women and children. How very convenient.
Morning, beautiful women. Wow. We do this every Friday. Every Friday for the past 6 years. Neighbor. Answer is not your portion, though.
And then he became a champion, an advocate for breast and cervical cancer, raising awareness, preaching early detection, screening women in their numbers. He chose the ideal line of medicine that would have women's breasts and vaginas surrendered to him on a daily. Dr. Femi defied his sacred oath of practice, taking advantage of vulnerable women who had to reveal their nakedness to him in search for medical care. He is alleged to have molested tons of women, single and married, young and old, right there at the hospital. There is a particularly painful story of a young girl who had to take her life after she was raped by Dr. Femi. Oh, she couldn't stand the pain, the torture, the disgrace, the shame. She ended it all.
Girl who was raped by Femi Olaleye a day after her boyfriend proposed to her, and she committed suicide the following day. For the girl he impregnated and beat her to death. For the same vulnerable girl he had sex with on that hospital bed. For every survivor, every woman in Nigeria that he took advantage of. For the women he was going to do cancer screening for, and he did their videos. For the married women he raped, and their husbands were waiting in the reception, and the men did not know. And these women cannot come out because of shame and stigma.
Dr. Femi hid behind his lab coats and his stethoscopes to commit tons of atrocities and barbarities. And many of his victims could not speak of it because of the shame and the stigma. But you know what they say? Whatever has a beginning will certainly have an end. His Waterloo was coming. Femi's wife, Remy, had a little niece, a 14-year-old child who had just lost her father and had no one to care for her. So Remy took her in, put her in school, and took up the role of guardian in the life of this child. Maybe she could have known that her husband was a womanizer, but a pedophile? She would have sworn that he would never stoop to that level. She had no idea the man she was married to. It all started on this fateful night, or should we call it early morning, around 2 a.m. when everyone was asleep. Dr. Femi had drugged his wife Remy, knocked her out of consciousness to ensure that there was no chance at all of her waking up or running into what he was about to do. He woke his wife's little niece up and told her to make some coffee for him and bring it into the study. When she did, he pounced on her, pushed her, and began getting ready to do the unthinkable. The little girl begged him, pleaded with him, cried to him, and told him that she was still a virgin, that he should please not do this to her. She wanted to keep her virginity for marriage. She appealed to his conscience. Had no conscience. He pounced on this child, his wife's flesh and blood, right under the roof where his wife laid. And he took her virtue. And when he was done, he administered contraceptives to her, cleaned the blood, and then threatened her that if she ever told anybody, she was gonna die. That was the first, but that was certainly not the last of it. This child became Dr. Femi's sex toy. Oh, he did unthinkable things to her. He would make her perform oral sex on him, ejaculate in her mouth, force pornography on her, and practice all the lewd things that played in the pornographic tape on this little girl. He would sodomize her and force himself in every part of her body. He did terrible things to that child. It continued non-stop for almost 2 years, right from when this child was barely 14 to when she was about clocking 16. It got to a point that the child couldn't take it anymore, and she told herself that if I am going to die, if I speak about this, then so be it. Let me die. And then with tears in her eyes, she approached a senior aunt and revealed everything that had been happening in the last 2 years. When the senior aunt told Remy what the child had said, Remy collapsed. The next place she found herself was in the hospital. Her blood pressure shooting to over 200. It was as though she was in a haze. The father of her children, a Christian man, a well-respected and well-traveled doctor, a man who had a daughter just a few years younger than this girl. How could he have been doing this to her innocent niece who called him daddy? This woman, a woman I have described as a 1 in a million woman. Because what she did is not typical. The typical woman in Nigeria would have thought of everything that she would have stood to lose, would have done a financial analysis of the situation, would have been selfish about her decision. The typical woman in Africa would have thought about protecting her home. How this little girl has come to ruin her marriage, seduce her husband. How leaving her marriage for this girl, for this child, for this one is not worth it. Do you know how many women know that their husbands have molested or molest their house helps and keep quiet? That their husbands molest other people's children and keep quiet and hide it and cover it, cover up, conceal it. But not a woman like Remy. She took action and she reported the case to the police station. The police station where this case was reported to got shady. They took the side of the perpetrator, didn't take action, and started trying to conceal the whole thing, to bury the whole thing. And so a petition was immediately written to the Lagos State Domestic and Sexual Violence Response Agency. Oh, they worked so hard. I give it up to that gender unit, to that sexual violence agency of Lagos in particular. Those people are working. And if every state in Nigeria can emulate what Lagos is doing when it comes to sexual violence, especially against children, that country will be a better place. But it's almost like it's just Lagos that is working. They worked hard and forwarded that case to the Director of Public Prosecution, recommending that Dr. Femi be tried. And so he was. He was charged under Section 137 and Section 261 of the Criminal Laws of Lagos State. These charges bordered on defilement and sexual assault by penetration. We will get to those charges, but let's proceed. It was a very tough trial. Do you know how difficult it is to fight for justice in Nigeria? It's not abroad, though, where you will sit down, police will be coming to meet you, following up with you. You're even the one that will be shouting at the police, "Get out of here, I want justice." This one, you go waka, you go spend money, you go hear win. It doesn't come easily. It doesn't fall on your thighs. The trial was tough. There were threats. There was intimidation, attempts to bribe.
Her story was consistent. She never told any lie from the beginning. Everything she was saying from the very first day the case was reported at Antony Police Station, and when we went to gender, her story was consistent. So we want to applaud her for not being induced, for not being allowing herself to be induced with money. You know, and this is one of the reasons why survivors don't want to talk, because they try so many things, you know, to make them shut up. This was a few days to judgment. I think 2 days to the judgment day was when this happened. Yes.
So she was offered 400,000 with the promise.
With the promise that if she did the video changing the story, they will pay her the balance of 2.1 million. But her mother returns the money back to the person. We have the proof. Yes, and we have the affidavit in court.
Frustration, heavy financial commitments, emotional roller coasters, guilt tripping. Dr. Femi's family came heavily for his wife. How dare she report their son? There was even this voice note that I heard with my 2 ears, where Dr. Femi's mother was admonishing the wife that, what is it? Why can't she let it go? What is there? That is he the first person to sleep with the child? What is it? Why is she making a mountain out of a molehill? There was no remorse at all from either the man or members of his family. At a point, he even tried to link what the wife was doing to motive. He began spreading the narrative and telling the courts that the wife was trying to set him up and get him out of the way because she wanted his car, she wanted the house, she wanted to lay claims to his property. There was a lot, but that woman, God bless her soul, she stood firm and she stood her ground. She insisted that justice must be gotten for that motherless child. Finally, in October of last year, the state court delivered verdicts. It found Dr. Femi guilty of all the counts and sentenced him to a lifetime of imprisonment on the 2 counts, and they were to run concurrently. We were also relieved. We heaved a sigh and said, wow, so justice finally. And when I heard that Dr. Femi had appealed the decision to the Court of Appeal, I wasn't surprised because I know that a drowning man would cling on straws, would grab at straws. And I wasn't afraid neither. The evidence was overwhelming. There were forensic reports. The hospital gave evidence. The victim herself, the minor, mounted the box and gave evidence. His wife gave testimony. Members of staff from the Lagos Gender Unit gave their own testimony. It seemed like a pretty much airtight case. But to my utter shock and dismay, I got wind a few hours ago that the Court of Appeal has overturned the decision of the lower courts, has quashed the conviction of Dr. Femi, and has discharged and acquitted him, thus making Dr. Femi free as a bird and at liberty to integrate back into society. Just like you, I questioned on what grounds. I was very curious to know on what grounds. Was it on a legal issue or was it merely on a technicality? I haven't gotten hold of the court documents, the judgment. It just happened a few hours ago, so I haven't gotten wind of it to properly peruse it and know what exactly happened. To know why a Court of Appeal will discharge and acquit a convicted pedophile. But from the words I'm seeing on social media, it says that the Court of Appeal faulted the decision of the lower court on the grounds that the age of the child was not determined. There wasn't sufficient documentation and evidence to prove that the child was below 18 and that there was no direct evidence to establish the age of the child. So let's talk legally speaking here. Dr. Femi was charged for 2 offenses under 2 sections of that criminal laws of Lagos State. The first one, section 137, and it says, any person who has sexual intercourse with a child commits a felony and is liable upon conviction to imprisonment for life. So this crime, this section, this charge is very specific to children, right? Because it criminalizes sexual intercourse with a child. So if the question of whether that victim was a child becomes contestable, becomes in question, becomes a subject of dispute, and that cannot be proven because the fact of being a child is material for this section to take effect. So let me say this victim was not proven to be a child, right? So this section cannot apply because this section covers defilement of a child only. What about the second section that he was charged under? Section 261 of the criminal law of Lagos State. Remember that he was charged under 2 different sections and he was convicted separately. Life imprisonment for this one, life imprisonment for that one. So there are 2 different convictions, right? So if the first life imprisonment was quashed because of it wasn't proven, there was no evidence to show that the victim in question was a child. Let us hear what the second section has to say. Section 261 of that same legislation. It says, any person who sexually touches another person without their consent is guilty of a felony and is liable to imprisonment for 3 years. Section 263 went further when it said, where the sexual activity cost involved sexual penetration, the offender is guilty of a felony and is liable to imprisonment for life. So there was a life conviction under the first charge and another life conviction under the section 263. So if the courts, the appellate courts, quashed the decision of the lower courts based on the fact that it couldn't establish the age of the child, this second section does not have any restriction to age. So why wasn't Dr. Femi's conviction upheld on the grounds and the wordings of section 263 of the Lagos State criminal laws? Or is the courts, come to think of it, I'm trying to just imagine why this conviction was quashed. Or is the appellate court trying to say, since the first charge didn't hold, that the intercourse was consensual, so the second one cannot hold too? You know, according to law, there is nothing like consensual intercourse with a child. So since the court has cancelled the age of that child being proven as a minor, is the court holding that the second conviction cannot be upheld because she consented, there was consent, hence the second conviction too cannot hold? Is that what the Court of Appeal is saying? Ooh, I can't wait to get hold of the court judgment, the documents, so I can understand why both convictions were quashed. This is crazy. This is appalling. This is ludicrous. Every day our children are getting violated and destroyed. A good percentage that I can peg at 50% of these children do not talk. The cases go unreported. The children keep it to themselves. 30% out of the 100, remember 50 do not even talk at all. 30% that talk, the case gets killed from the grassroots, settled out of courts. Monies are given to the parents. Go and take her to the hospital and buy her shawarma. This 30% gets settled even at the police station level. Sometimes even before police station, settles within family. And everybody keeps quiet. Please, I don't want this shame. That's already 80% down the line. Then 15% from the 20 that is left do not even get justice at all. Then the 5%, the little fraction that get justice, we are now seeing that justice being overturned. In any sane country, in any country that values human beings, people would have taken to the streets now in protest with their placards, protesting this decision of the Court of Appeal. But in the face of extreme poverty and hardship, survival is what is paramount. Justice has become secondary, has become minor, has become a luxury. A society where the judiciary cannot be held accountable for the environment they create, where dangerous people are injected back into the society, where the laws cannot be upheld to protect children. Oh, what a society. How will victims speak out? Tell me how people who are facing abuse will be encouraged to speak when after all the shame, after rejecting all the money, after suffering to get justice, this is what happens. Why won't religion become a major tool for exploitation when the court's justice has failed woefully? And now people have to depend on God's justice. Depend on God for the basicest rights that the government should freely provide. All the efforts of the people who stuck out their necks for this case, rubbished. The trauma that child has to relieve, knowing that the man who hurt her is free as a bird. The pain of the wife who gave up everything to ensure that this justice is gotten, gave up having her children with their father, gave up her marriage, gave up her peace of mind. All of that gone down the drain. The gallant members of staff at the gender units who stuck out their necks.
This justice is for you. We stuck our necks for you. Nigerians don't understand what we went through. We were threatened. We put our life on the line because we know that he had done Too much atrocity to Nigerian women.
The public figures, the celebrities, Kate Henshaw, Princess, all of them who stood for the truth. After everything, Dr. Femi is free as a bird, back into society to continue from where he stopped. There is a song that goes, there is not much justice in the world, but in some parts of the world, there is no justice at all. I would search for the judgment document, and read it to get a better understanding. And I do hope that the prosecution does not give up, does not rest. I do hope that this judgment of the Court of Appeal is challenged further to the Supreme Court. I hope that they stay relentless until justice is gotten for that child. I'll keep my eyes open on that case. So guys, yes, we have come to the end of this video. If you're new here or seen my face for the first time, or if you've been watching without subscribing, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, give this video a big thumbs up. Drop all your comments down in the comment section and stay glued, for we have so much more coming your way. It's me, your girl barrister Neze, and this is Nezeville. I'll see you guys in my next one. For now, bye.
Need to address this. This is directly to Dr. Femi Olaleye of Optimal Cancer Care Foundation. I feel that in a society where we cannot protect our children from predators, it is a society doomed to fail. I've known Dr. Femi for a number of years, a long time. We met at an event in Unilag many years ago, and he had approached me to help in his advocacy for breast cancer screening for women and the rest. On the 9th of July, 9th or 10th of July, was another advocacy drive of his. So I went, as usual, in the pouring rain. You see, for me, when I give my word, it's something that I don't play with. I have integrity, and I beat my chest about it. So in conversation, I just, how's your wife? And he was like, So I said, what's wrong? And then he now said, we'll talk later, when the room was clear. So he cleared the room and said the nurses, they should give us room. And so I asked, well, how's your wife? And he said, oh, they're separated, they're no more together. She had kicked him out of the house. I'm like, that's serious. You know, and then he went on to say, I would admit to you, Kate, she set me up. I fell. I didn't understand what that meant. He fell. Okay, so I said, what happened? He said, oh, she brought a young girl into the house and he did stuff with her. I'm like, Dr. Femi, now, wow, why would you, of course, the first thing is blame his wife, that she knew his weakness and she did that and blah, blah, just kicked him out. She even arrested him. I'm like, wow. This was before he told me he had had the thing with the girl. When he said he had been arrested, I'm like, how would the wife arrest you? So it was later when I now heard from him that it was because he had sexual relations with, so he didn't even tell me it was the wife's niece. Didn't tell me she was underage either. Proceeded to tell me other things, and I'm like, okay, just take it easy. You guys try and resolve it. Make sure you try and see your children. I'm sure everything will be fine. And I'm like, then the wife, Remy, reaches out to me and, 4 hours on the phone we spent. She was telling me all sorts of, she sent me videos. Dr. Femi Olaleye had been molesting, disvirgin the 16-year-old girl. He had been doing that for 1 year and 9 months. I'm not going to put a picture of the girl or the video. If you see her, she's just like a tomboy. I wondered in my mind, what could drive a man like that, who has a beautiful wife? And by the way, he's not bad looking as well. You are both together, you and your wife, in the same house, and you are... Dr. Femi, I want to tell you that I'm a straightforward person, and that you said what you said to me. The earlier you come to terms with what you have done, submit yourself to the authorities so that they can do the needful with you. You molested a 15-year-old girl. You disvirgined her. You threatened her and told her that if she told anyone she would die. You are a doctor. You are meant to care. You took a Hippocratic oath, Dr. Femi. You know what you did. It is left for the authorities to do the needful. I am here should any clarification be needed. And I put it to you that I'm not lying. You know what you did. And it is a terrible thing and you should be ashamed of yourself.